Hi, we wanted to bring you a video to cover the topic that a lot of judges and jail staff and people have had questions about, which is how do we handle magistration during this situation we have with the coronavirus pandemic, with the disease COVID-19. And so we're going to put together a little bit of a video here to kind of go through the highlights of what everyone should be kind of focused on and looking at while performing these duties. And some people may wonder, why are we needing to do this? Why do we have to have special steps? Can't we just do business as usual? And, the situation we're dealing with right now is a disaster on every level, right? It's local, state, national, and worldwide. We've had pandemic declarations and emergency declarations from the World Health Organization, Center for Disease Control, President Trump. Governor Abbott, as I record this today on March 19th, has issued a declaration statewide in Texas restricting activities based on this pandemic. And of course, a few days ago, the Texas Supreme Court and Court of Criminal Appeals issued their joint emergency order related to what courts should be doing. We have a separate webinar available on our website and on our YouTube channel about how that order impacts court function. I certainly recommend let you take a look at that if you have not done so already. We've gotten guidance from the Office of Court Administration, right? And we have that available on our website, as well as far as how to handle essential versus non-essential court functions, etc. And of course, countless of local officials have been out working hard to try and do everything they can do to keep their community safe. Now, with regard to magistration, something else that heightens the need for some special steps is the nature of jails and prisons, right? They're very crowded. People are packed in. And so that can be an absolute tinderbox that is ripe for this virus, which is highly contagious. It has a high R naught, is the technical term. But that just impacts how many people each a person who gets it, how many people do they expect to infect? And so it's a measure of contagion. This is a quite contagious disease. And so obviously it can burn through a jail very quickly. That can really put a real tough situation for jail resources. And also, of course, one of the biggest things with this pandemic that, all these kind of precautions are made to prevent is a spike of infections, which then overcrowds the hospitals and the resources there, right, where there aren't enough beds and there aren't enough ventilators and there aren't enough doctors and the doctors don't have enough protective equipment, right? So we need to not have spikes of infection, and jails are ripe for that type of spike. I've linked a couple articles here. If you'll, open the PowerPoint that goes with this, you can click on those and read these articles for a discussion of this issue, why this is such a high spread risk and a risk of that spike, and what many areas are doing is, as you see in the title of the Washington Post article, is actually releasing some prisoners to lessen the spread. Now, of course, no one is advocating releasing, your murderers and your sexual predators and those kind of people. But what a lot of jurisdictions are looking at is this a good time for people to be in jail when we're dealing with, again, nonviolent misdemeanor type of offenses? Also, some jails have taken additional precautions with elderly inmates who, of course, generally are going to pose less of a risk to the public at large, and of course are dramatically at increased risk if they happen to catch COVID-19. And so those two articles I would recommend let you read. The Texas Commission on Jail Standards has also been communicating with jails regarding what they should be doing. I have the link here where you can go and see their advisories. They have in their advisories, they also mention considering release of certain prisoners. They have disallowed visitation, right? Because we need as few people in the jail as possible while this is going on. They have also developed a screening form to screen inmates who are being admitted for potential COVID-19 exposure. I will say on that form, they only ask about the symptoms if the person has visited certain areas. I think that's outdated, that now that there is community spread becoming more widespread in the United States, that screening people who are exhibiting the symptoms at minimum is necessary, even if they haven't been traveling in the countries listed on that screening form or been exposed to a known confirmed case of COVID-19. So on a related note, right, we're talking about not having people go into the jail. If you have a hearing to decide if you're going to do a commitment order, so someone who hasn't satisfied a criminal judgment might have to lay out the fine and costs once you've had the necessary hearings, of course, to determine all those factors. We should really be delaying those commitment orders until the pandemic has subsided. If you have someone brought before you on a capias pro fine, right, you have jurisdiction to dispose of another justice of the peace capias pro fine as long as it's from your county. We strongly recommend you dispose of it in a way that does not involve ordering additional jail commitment at this time. Again, we're just trying to minimize the number of people that are actually going into the jail. So what are we going to do, right? Magistration of arrestees is considered an essential court function, and that means it has to continue during the outbreak, right? Certain functions are designated as essential, and this is one of them. So we have to keep doing it, but we need to be doing it as safely as possible. And so the biggest, easiest thing that you can do to protect yourself as well as jail staff and inmates is setting up video magistration if your county is not set up for that, right? And this is related to what I've been saying. We want less people going into the jail. That includes you, right? And you may think, oh, well, I'm not worried if I catch it, but the way this disease works, right? People carry it around without having symptoms. You could actually be carrying it without symptoms and then spreading it into the jail, right? And you could be the person that provides the flame to that tinderbox and has that infection rip through that entire jail. So we need as few people as possible, including you, going into the jail. How to do it, okay? On this is information that is also on our coronavirus info page, which is at tjctc.org/coronavirus. This is a link to one company that does it called NetProtect. They have a website, videomagistrate.com. We aren't specifically advocating this company over any others. This is just one that we are immediately aware of that is doing this. There's an information video and a demo video available at those two YouTube links. I would encourage you to watch those. Watch the demo video if you're not sure how it works. It's really pretty simple and straightforward. As a reminder, to do remote magistration, we do have to have two-way audio and two-way video. Some video magistration resources. Some judges who have volunteered to serve as resources for video magistration are listed here. Don't need to read these off to you, but you can see those there. And these are all judges who have volunteered to be contacted by judges who are trying to set up video magistration. Some health considerations when you're performing magistration. Strongly consider personal bonds anytime those are available. Again, remember there's a difference between a personal bond and a PR bond. A personal bond can have a monetary amount attached to that bond, so it's not just you get out for nothing. They can say, I promise I'll pay X amount of money if I don't appear. And, this... We've kind of been going over this over the last few years about how personal bonds are something to be considering in lots of different situations, how they can be just as effective as monetary bonds. And now we have a new item to kind of put in the calculation of whether or not to grant a personal bond, which is the safety of the individual during incarceration, right? Kind of like we talked about, can cause, can put the person at risk of being part of this spread within the jail or prison of this disease. So really should be weighing if a personal bond might not be the most appropriate thing at this point in time, just to protect that person and the jail, right? If this is the person who might be introducing it to your jail, it's going to be so much better for your community at large, both the people in the jail and the people out of the jail, right? Because if the people who aren't in jail, if the jail inmates are taking up all the hospital beds because there was an outbreak in the jail, then the people in your community are not going to have access to those hospital beds if they have, appendix rupture or heart attack or a stroke or a car accident, all those kind of things. So just significantly consider whether or not a personal bond is the most appropriate thing. Remember, as always, you can impose reasonable bond conditions. Those bond conditions can be directed to protect the safety of the community. That could include ordering someone who, for example, is exhibiting symptoms of the disease to self-quarantine while they're out on personal bond. We need you to go out. We're concerned about your situation. You need to stay home for 14 days and not spread this around the community. Be aware of difficulties complying with any other conditions during this emergency, right? If you order someone to take a class, it might be really difficult over the next, however long we're dealing with this, whether it's 30 days or 60 days or whatever it is. It might be very difficult for a person to, take a anger management class or an anti-theft class or anything like that. So just be aware while this is going on that they may not be able to comply with that. We've had some judges ask about the possibility of ordering the person to take a test to see if they have the coronavirus, COVID-19. And part of the problem with that is right now still kind of a lack of availability of tests, right? As we continue to progress, if we have more and more tests available, particularly, the drive-through testing that many areas are seeing available, that might be something that becomes a realistic, feasible option to order as a condition. Let the person take the test, and if they turn out positive, that they self-quarantine. Okay, stay safe. That's our closing word is stay safe. Your function in protecting the rights of the defendant and the community includes doing your part to reduce the spread of this deadly pandemic. You need to keep that task right up front. It's first and foremost while you're performing any of your functions, including your magistrate duties. Stay tuned to our coronavirus page for frequent updates. This is obviously a fluid and rapidly changing situation. If you have concerns about technology and how to handle the technological aspects of this, again, we have the links on our page for the video magistration stuff. We also have a separate webinar that focuses on tech tools and how to do that and various ways to hold remote hearings, including things like Zoom and things like that. So I strongly encourage, even if you have video magistration, watch that webinar as well so that you might be able to hold some of your essential hearings remotely without having to bring people into the court and have people exposed. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you all stay safe, stay calm, stay vigilant. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.